Hello and welcome to the final episode of the Future Ready Tech Modern Work podcast. I'm Edd Dale, and today we're talking about how businesses can move from AI vision to AI reality. We've spent this series talking about adaptability, hybrid work, and AI's potential, but now it's time to get practical, and this is your execution playbook. We'll learn how to plan your AI rollout, what to think about before you start, and how to ensure devices and infrastructure are ready to deliver. So today I'm joined by Tom Cripps, Partner Development Manager at Microsoft Surface, Terry Chana, CTO at XMA, and Ben Green, Partner Business Manager at Qualcomm Technologies. And together we'll explore how to deploy AI-ready Surface Copilot Plus PCs at scale, align AI goals within your workforce needs, and make sure security, performance, and adoption are built in from day one. So, Terry, from your position as CTO here at XMA, when a business comes to you saying that we want to use AI, where do you start? What are some of the things that need to be considered and defined to start that journey?
Yeah, great question. So it sounds a bit corny, but we have what we call a demystifying AI executive briefing. So usually that's effectively our starting point. So in that we talk about three different buckets. The first one is about AI-powered experience. So we're talking about using generative AI to enhance productivity. So Copilot. Then we talk about how we can support with customer service right through to IT support. So users engaging with a digital assistant in Teams, for example. Mm-hmm. The second part is around AI-powered operations. So we'll talk about AI for automated software testing, for example. We'll talk about AI for IT support. And then we also talk about AI for security as well, helping analysts get through those false alerts. And then there's a third pillar, which is around governance. So we talk about security, we talk about biases and fairness, and then just a broader piece around the governance part. And then kind of once we've gone through that, we look at use cases along all of those. We provide some use cases to customers, and the customers contribute with their own use cases as well. I think the other bit worth mentioning as well is we focus quite heavily on the three types. Everything's in three, by the way. The three types model. So if a customer is going to buy something off the shelf, if they're going to look at blending it with the rest of the infrastructure, or if they're looking at building from scratch. Let me take a step back, provide some recommendations, and we have follow-up workshops.
So it's a pretty comprehensive set of offerings, so people shouldn't feel kind of afraid to get started. There are frameworks, there's things in place for customers to get started. And I guess really the next point, Tom, so following on from that, is once we've got this, and once the strategy is clear, how do we translate that into the right devices for the right customers?
Sure. So once you've gone through the steps that Terry's just talked about and you've clearly defined the strategy, the next point that we would say is to ensure that we give the right device to the right user. So in order to do that, you need to do some persona mapping. So obviously within organizations, you can have different users who are doing different functions and different tasks ultimately. And so ensuring that the user has got the right device which is fit for purpose in terms of what they're doing, then that's super important, right? Yeah. So, with the Surface portfolio, we have 2-in-1 devices, which are, like with the Surface Pro range. Mm-hmm. So ultimately they can be used in a tablet mode or as a PC, ultimately. Yeah. So it's a flexibility of a tablet with a power of a PC.
What are some examples of where a 2-in-1 might be a better fit for?
Of course, for yeah. So think about frontline workers. Think about people who are out in the field, right? So they need to, they need to move around with their device. They need something that's lightweight, portable, flexible. Exactly, yeah. And flexibility plays into it, right? So some people like to use touchscreen devices, others don't, for example. Yep. Some like to use pen input and others don't. if we think about that in a context of a customer, let's say you're working with a LRG, like a local regional government, and you've got a housing department, and you've got people who are in the field who are going out to different properties, taking surveys, for example. If you give them a 2-in-1 device with like a protective case, they can go out to their customers ultimately, which would be to a property. They could take down notes on their device as a tablet, but go directly into it. So we were working with a customer who had that kind of that setup, and they were taking a laptop device and a pen and paper, and then they were coming back to the office to translate those notes onto the device, and it's not very productive, right? If you give them the flexibility to be able to work in the way that they want to, give them the inking capability to be able to use the technology to go and then do what they need to do with the out on the field, and then do the direct input into their device there, and obviously save their work in the cloud. It's all all ties together ultimately. That would be different from someone in marketing, for example.
Someone's mainly the office.
Yeah, mainly in the office. They might choose to have a Surface laptop. We're on the Surface Laptop 7 at the moment. Some people do like that form factor still, and we recognise that. And we're now on the seventh iteration, so it's been a very popular device.
It's like just a classic laptop, and I guess for like you're saying, people who like say marketing, people that may be in creative roles, they need that larger screen, that larger display size. The Surface Laptop can give that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So let's say they're using something like the Adobe Suite, for example, which, by the way, like third parties are starting to integrate AI workloads into those third-party applications. So we talk about Copilot plus PCs. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're using Copilot as their AI on that device. Ultimately, they could be using something like Adobe Suite with the the creative tools that are in there, which have got AI built into it now. If you've got Copilot plus PC with that MPU that we previously talked about, ultimately they will run those AI workloads on the MPU and free up the CPU and GPU, give them the power and performance that they need on that device.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned NPUs actually, because it's almost like we've planned this. We've got Ben from Qualcomm Technologies joining us. So really talking about having on-device AI NPUs, and a lot of this is being spearheaded by Qualcomm Technology. So Ben, obviously performance, especially when it comes to AI-driven workloads, is always a concern. So what is Qualcomm Technologies doing, Snapdragon, with these devices to deliver on those promises of performance, of battery life, and just really kind of enhancing the way that we work today?
Snapdragon and the Snapdragon X Elite platform, we're focused solely on the user experience primarily as a big driver, and complementing what's going on around AI. And the associated benefits that you can get from this new silicon now, and what we're driving and the innovation that we're bringing to the market, is really enhancing that user experience point. Battery life is a big considered point right now for users. Whatever environment that you're working in, you can be confident to have the battery life to power that Windows experience. But the other thing for us is the way we deliver it ensures that whatever environment the device is in, unplugged or plugged in, the performance is there. Users are not going to see a drop in performance on the Snapdragon platform, whatever task that they're doing. And that feeds into the other element, which is around the MPU. Offering that localized, low latency, secure approach to enabling AI on the device, whether it be Copilot Plus or the other software and applications, because it's the touch points of it are through all inflections of how we're using the kit, right? There's not a single sole entity that's going to be the killer AI app. It's feeding and fostering into everything that we're using right now.
Yeah, and I one of the things I really love about how this combines with Surface. In one of the previous episodes where we had Nick joining us, we were talking about the combination of Surface and Microsoft, but then adding into what Qualcomm Technologies is doing with the Snapdragon silicon is now bringing that battery life and that insane performance when it comes to the tops, the AI processing. So we've got the best of Microsoft combined with the best of Qualcomm Technologies to create a device for users, and especially in the world that we live today, where people are working. We live in a hybrid work world now. Battery life, you mentioned, hugely important. We're at the dawn of a new era of AI, and again, Qualcomm Technologies, really spearheading that as well. So
it's important for businesses to feel comfortable as the user experience evolves, as the device procurement evolves, that the devices are secure, the data is secure, and that's where, again, the MPU really comes into its own in ensuring that users can demand a certain type, a device of choice, and have that comfortable confidence as a business that the data is protected. Doing these AI workloads locally with that low latency is really going to be a considered point for businesses moving forward. And I think that that's going to really drive this new way of looking at next gen devices.
Absolutely, and we know that a lot of customers are very concerned about security. The same we discussed in a previous episode. The security, the whole chip to cloud piece, and then obviously with everything that's happening with the Qualcomm technology silicon, it creates a very kind of robust, secure environment for customers, right?
So yeah, absolutely. Like security is obviously one of the key pillars that most customers, it's one of the foundations that their organizations
of course
built,
has to be,
right? And when we talk about that chip to cloud security, Microsoft used that as terminology, particularly within the Surface discussions that we have, because you're really getting from the silicon, when we say the chip obviously, but on the device. So you've got the device layer security, you then have the firmware layer security, which we mentioned. We build and manage our own UFI, which is a firmware interface ultimately. So we have ultra secure and flexibility around the actual firmware on the device. And then we have the operating system, obviously Windows 11, Windows 10 coming to end of service on the 14th of October is a key moment in time for customers to start thinking about if they're still on Windows 10 and they're not thinking about moving, then obviously they need to, because we're not going to be doing patches and updates for that OS anymore, which will open them up to vulnerabilities in their estate ultimately. So once we've nailed off the security level within the operating system, we've then got it in our broader suite of applications.
Yeah, and M365, loads of stuff.
Absolutely. So it truly is, all built together by Microsoft to run best on these devices ultimately.
Absolutely, and then it ties back into everything that the Qualcomm Technologies is doing. Again, this is why we always talk about just the best of Microsoft, but this really is the best of Microsoft and Qualcomm Technologies, and ultimately this is just going to enhance that user experience, which again is one of the key priorities, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The user experience is going to be so crucial in terms of how we consider. And I think, again, the wonderful thing about where Qualcomm Technologies and Snapdragon can bring is those different technologies and experiences we've powered previously. Our legacy around communication, the history we have in the broader portfolio of products that we have, we bring that all together and feed that into the silicon to drive this new way of enabling and using Windows.
So one of the things I want to ask you about, because obviously when people think of AI, they're quite familiar with AI. They're quite familiar with things such as Copilot or ChatGPT, but this is all AI that's based in the cloud. Now we're talking about devices now, again, thanks to the silicon, that can now offer offline AI. Now, to some people, this may be a fairly new concept. So what is offline AI?
It's a straightforward kind of, as it says on the tin, it's AI experiences and enabling workloads and prompts with your device, whatever environment that you're in. You're not reliant on the connection to the internet. You're doing everything locally on the device. And as we've spoken about, the associated benefits that come with that are huge. And the benefits in terms of, again, security, keeping the data safe, keeping the data secure and localized, not communicating and uploading and sharing information. And, it's surprising, how we find our own devices, our own journey, our own personal uses around AI. There isn't that awareness and understanding of what happens with the data. And I think that's a valid point of consideration for a lot of businesses to consider how employees and users are going to be engaging with AI. And I think, the ability to have that confidence, to do everything, to have that experience on the device in a secure environment with no latency as well, right? You're not reliant on another element to be able to give you the information to run the workloads that you need. So you can do everything on the device, whatever environment you're in.
And again, we're still quite early in the journey of AI, in the grand scheme of things anyway. Do you think that offline AI is going to start evolving into things in terms of assisting with, like, like productivity, collaboration? Because at the moment, offline AI can do some great stuff. But is this just the beginning, do you think?
Oh, massively so, right? We're seeing over the last year, we've seen an acceleration of Snapdragon 4 applications and AI use cases, and ISVs by a factor of 3 make their enhancements to the applications that they're promoting, ensuring they work on the Snapdragon environment. We're seeing that progress really start to accelerate, and I think I mentioned before, this is kind of the start of things. We're going to see a snowball effect around not just being a sole single AI use case for everybody. It's going to touch into and integrate into every experience that we use the device for.
I'm waiting for it to get to the point. I don't know if any of you have seen, I always talk about this and no one's ever seen it, the movie Her.
I have, yeah.
Yeah?
No.
Yeah, no. Oh, honestly, how could you be an AI?
I can talk Pulp Fiction, mate.
Oh,
no,
no.
I don't think.
Well, no. Again, I'm going off on a tangent now. I think I'll do it. Yeah, but yeah. I mean, just talking about, like, because I think when I think of like offline AI, I'm thinking of like when we get to an eventual point where the device is its kind of like own AI entity that you can interact with, much in the same way that that people use to call out Apple Siri, for example, but that's not AI, it's like pseudo AI. But kind of getting to that point where you've got an assistant on a device, I hope that is the future that this will start to move towards, because you want to talk about enhancing an experience. I mean, that I think that would be game changer.
AI,
but again, I'm looking way ahead.
You're right. Look, I think ultimately the goal here, what we're doing, what we're seeing is creating a motion for users to be more efficient, right? To be able to work smarter, to be able to leverage, communicate quicker. The way that we use the devices, the way we're experienced with the devices around AI is going to make us so much more productive, just because of the simplicity of access of information, and being able to do that really on the device, and businesses having that confidence that their information, intellectual property is secure. That's going to be the crucial stepping point, I think, for consideration.
I think some of the benefits to doing things locally on the device rather than in the cloud, and it's interesting actually, it is a bit of a pivot. We've always talked about talking to customers about moving their workloads into the cloud, and then obviously the efficiencies that drives, and now we're almost like coming back on ourselves and we're saying, well, how do we actually run that at the edge, and what does that mean, right? So if there's things that you can do locally on the device rather than in the cloud, then there's a potential cost saving element around that. I think about some of the schools that we sell to, and if you've got children at schools perhaps in underprivileged areas where, I think we take it for granted that having internet connectivity is just, available to us, right? And that you're always on and you've got connectivity, but actually that's not true.
It's not always true. No, it's not.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
And we talk about this being a barrier in education, right? So it's how do we give people devices that they can then go and do their best work on, right? And give everyone the same experience, right? So if you've got a child that can use a device in a classroom, and obviously there's programs where schools obviously facilitate devices into the classroom, right? You give them a device like this where they can run local processes and local AI. They can take that device home. They might not be connected to the internet because they might not have an internet connection. They can still do their work and get what they need to out of their device. And then obviously when they get back to the school and the workplace, they can obviously do cloud sync and upload using that, but it doesn't feel to them that they're having a different experience, right? That's super powerful.
Absolutely.
I think there's a personalization element as well to it. I don't know about you guys. There's always things built into Windows that just seem to like pop up, and it's like, oh, okay, that's a cool new feature, but that's made things a little bit faster for me. The search function, for example, on these AI-powered PCs is extremely powerful. So if you're looking for a document now, you can put in things like, oh, well, I can't remember what that was, but I know it had a picture of an ice cream in it, right? You can search for...
So it's not just keywords anymore, it's actually,
It doesn't have to be pertaining to that document. And I mean, if I use Copilot every day, right? And it's not just because I work at Microsoft, I genuinely do, and I don't know how I'd live without it, right? But seriously, like for things like summarizing meetings, or if I've been on holiday and getting it to go through what are my most important actions that I need to catch up on, things that take hours and hours and hours now take minutes. Perhaps if you're building a a podcast script and you've got some questions that have been sent to you and you want to get some
You want to come with some really good answers.
Yeah. Like it's genuinely, you can put it in, you can talk to it to Copilot in natural language, and then it will look through your inbox, your emails, your Teams messages, pulls all of that together and then gives you some stuff based off of that. But it's a personalized experience. If I'm saving documents, for example, and I save them in the same folder each time from an email that gets sent to me, right? Like rather than having to find that folder each time, like it will take me to that folder where I'm saving it. Things like that are the things that maybe we don't notice on a day-to-day, but they're extremely powerful, right?
Yeah. And doing all that locally, as we've said, all these tools, all that information, utilizing the MPU offline, companies can be confident and comfortable that they can get their users to be more efficient and work with these experiences.
So Ben, just one thing I wanted to ask you, because there has been a little bit of confusion out there from some when it comes to the compatibility of your silicon. Is that something you could just address for us real quick?
Yeah, I think at the top level, a really easy way to share where we're at in terms of the compatibility and user experience. If you look at the top 200 Windows apps that most users use, we have 93% compatibility natively. So the remaining 7% is actually emulated on the device, and it takes advantage of, again, the MPU to power those experiences. So things like Office 365, powered in an emulated state. Actually, I think users will be surprised with the performance that's available there. But in terms of the wider breadth of things, that 93% of all the primary Windows-based applications that all users will use run and operate natively on a Snapdragon environment.
Fantastic. So it was kind of more of a historical thing with compatibility.
Yeah, we've had to come a long way, right? We're building this silicon in a performant way, more efficient. The savings and everything can be attained by utilizing Snapdragon in environments are huge. But to ensure that, we have to work from an application perspective with app providers, with ISVs, with Windows to develop and work on that. So there's a confidence that I can give, and I think users and businesses should be looking at, trialing a device in their environment, taking a look and being pleasantly surprised.
Absolutely. You say 93%. I'm guessing that's probably 93% and growing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're taking a look at the primary top 200 apps in that statistic. Obviously, there's a huge amount more, and we're continuing to involve that as well. That is always continued. I think over the last year we've accelerated, the compatibility point by a factor of 3.
Oh wow!
So rapidly growing.
Fantastic. So really, kind of compatibility, not really a massive issue. And if you wanted to test it, you could get a loan device and try it out.
We work closely with XMA and Surface in ensuring that users have access to be able to try the devices. So yeah.
Fantastic. And on that topic, Terry, so once we've actually got devices out there into the hands of your customers, does XMA just stop there, or how else does XMA assist or help their customers with AI adoption?
Yeah, so we strive to help our customers get the most out of their investment. Some examples include helping them with their adoption plan and the adoption strategy, because there's nothing worse than investing in technology and not having the right adoption and uptake in it. So we initially start by getting data on utilization and experience as well, because they're two important things. We share that data with customers, trying to identify who the cohorts are, who's doing really well, who might be lagging behind, and try and help devise a plan to take them forward. We're quite fortunate because we have a number of educators within XMA that work on adoption training strategies. The other thing we do on top of that as well is help customers understand how they can get even more out of that investment. So there's work we're doing around AI Foundry for Microsoft.
Okay, yeah.
So looking at developing apps that run on the device locally, to help with those scenarios that you talked about, offline access. So it could be an organization has a application that's not necessarily a legacy app, but it's an application that's installed locally on the device, and they might want to infuse a bit of AI into the application. So using AI Foundry and developing a model for them can help them query data in the app. It can help them translate, etc.
Fantastic, excellent. And when it comes to leaders within organizations, how can they make sure their AI investments, that they're not just meeting today's needs, but they're actually kind of growing and evolving with the business, effectively future-proofing their businesses. How can we help leaders do this?
Yeah, there's a couple of things really. It's starting with the end in mind, and I know starting with the end with something which is still relatively new to like AI can be challenging, but it's really about taking that holistic view, having a look at what the art of the possible is, and then how you have the measurable steps to get there. It's also ensuring that the senior leaders in an organisation stay focused and champion the initiatives that are running. So staying focused, creating quick wins, celebrating those successes, and evolving and growing that momentum.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we talk about devices becoming a necessity rather than a commodity. If you think about the way that customers might have previously purchased is, they'll buy based on the number of users, based on the spec they need, and they'll do a one-size-fits-all across the estate, right? I know I talked a little bit about, making sure we've got the right user with the right device, but what I think we need to do now more than ever is to coach and to work with customers to really understand what their pain points are within their organization, and think about like what we can do to support with the technologies that we have available and that we're working on day to day, and take almost like a consultative approach of really understanding how we can go and solve for some of those challenges that they had. So I always say, like, be inquisitive, like really try and get under the sheets of what's going on in that customer, what are their priorities, what are their pain points, and then really think about the technology and where it is today and how that can help with it. I guess one thing that I didn't mention earlier when it comes to like picking the devices, and in order to future-proof the investment, is to think about, again, moving away from that, here's the device, one size fits all go. It's you've got a new Copilot Plus PC, users only know what they know with it, right? So it's about adoption.
Oh yeah.
I'm working with XMA and the team, is understanding kind of what training's available, how can we make sure that we get the most out of this investment, how do we make sure that the end user who gets that device fully understands how to use it in their role.
Yep.
And obviously if they're doing that, then they're going to be getting the experience is what we ultimately what we want to deliver. Because look, with all the oil in the world, we could go and land these Copilot Plus PCs with customers, and they could just use it the way that they have always, right? Yeah. They might not understand how to use those different things that I mentioned earlier, the features and functions. So that's super key, right? Taking them on a journey and being advisors now more than ever, especially with the rate of adoption, rate of change in technology that we're seeing. There's new features and functions that come out all the time. It's hard to keep up with, right? And it's demystifying that and translating that into a language that works for them, and it's not just speaking IT jargon, which is easy to do sometimes, right?
Well, gentlemen, thanks very much for joining me today on the Modern Work podcast. We've discussed a lot of different topics in today's episode. But is there anyone would like to give just a quick summary just before we wrap this up?
Yeah, sure. I think today we've really talked about how to plan for your AI adoption ultimately, right? So thinking through that journey ultimately. So it starts with understanding where you're at today, and there's like a consultative, some work that has to be done there to understand what the landscape looks like in terms of in your environment today, and where your users are and where you are as an organisation. Following from that, we talked a little bit about how picking the right device, which is right for the individual user. So doing some, like user mapping and profiling around that. Obviously, through all of this, it's key to, select the right partner that has the capabilities to be able to deliver against this, this vision that we have, right? Obviously, picking the right device is important, and picking the right silicon is super important as well. And then it's really thinking about, it's like, where do we want to get to, and how do we make sure that the change is adopted within the organisation, and it's not just something where we go in and you land this new motion, and everyone's left thinking, well, kind of what next? It's a journey. it is a journey, and we're here to be, consultative advisors around how to make that journey as best as, as good as possible, and to drive the most efficient outcomes.
And that brings us to the end of the series. And if there's one thing that we've learned, it's that AI isn't just a tool, it's a strategy. A huge thank you to Tom, Terry, and Ben for their insights. And if you're listening and ready to move from AI curiosity to AI capability, then follow XMA on LinkedIn for more expert guidance. You can also book a free consultation with the XMA team to start building your own AI roadmap. So thanks for joining us on Future Ready Tech.